Document Part 1. The asteroid mining colony of New Haven floated silently in the vast emptiness of space. It was a small outpost, home to less than 200 people, most of them workers who spent their days drilling into the rock for valuable minerals. The place wasn't glamorous, just a cluster of metal buildings connected by narrow tunnels, but it was humanity's foothold on the edge of the unknown. Daniel Carter tightened a bolt on one of the air filtration units in the maintenance bay. He was tall and lean, with calloused hands from years of working with machinery. His dark hair was always slightly messy, and his face carried the kind of tired expression that came from too many late nights fixing things other people broke. Tonight, like most nights, he was alone. The rest of the crew had gone to bed hours ago, leaving him to finish up some last-minute repairs. It was quiet, except for the low hum of the colony's systems. Too quiet, Daniel thought. He glanced at the clock on the wall. It was nearly midnight. Another hour, and he could finally turn in. Just as he reached for his wrench, the silence shattered. Alarms blared through the corridors, loud and piercing. Red lights flashed, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Daniel froze, his heart pounding. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He grabbed his tool belt and hurried toward the main control room. Along the way, he passed other colonists stumbling out of their quarters, bleary-eyed and confused. "What's going on?" Someone shouted, but no one had an answer. When Daniel arrived at the control room, chaos reigned. Screens displayed feeds from security cameras positioned around the perimeter of the colony. One screen showed something that made his stomach drop, a massive shape moving outside the outer wall. It was big, much bigger than any human or animal he'd ever seen. Its body shimmered under the artificial lights, covered in scales that glowed faintly with shifting colors. Long limbs ended in sharp claws, and its head looked like a mix between a wolf and a snake, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce right through the camera lens. "What is that thing?" Rachel Monroe asked, her voice trembling. She stood near the monitors, gripping the back of a chair for support. Rachel was a biologist, one of the few scientists stationed at New Haven. Her job was to study samples brought back from the surface of the asteroid, but nothing in her training had prepared her for this. "It's breached the perimeter," said Lucas Hayes, the head of security. He was a broad-shouldered man with a no-nonsense attitude and a permanent scowl etched onto his face. "We need to take it down before it gets inside." "Wait," Rachel interrupted. "We don't even know if it's dangerous. Maybe it's just lost or scared." Lucas turned to her, his expression hard. "Scared? That thing is 10 feet tall and looks like it crawled out of a nightmare. We can't take chances." Before anyone could argue, Lucas barked orders to his team. Within minutes, armed guards were suiting up, grabbing plasma rifles and heading toward the cargo hold where the creature had been spotted. Daniel hesitated, torn between staying safe in the control room and following the action. Curiosity won out, and he trailed behind the group, keeping his distance. The scene in the cargo hold was tense. The creature had cornered itself against a stack of crates, growling softly. Its glowing eyes darted back and forth, watching every movement. The guards aimed their weapons, fingers hovering over triggers. Daniel noticed something strange. The creature didn't seem aggressive. If anything, it looked confused, maybe even frightened. "Hold your fire," Rachel said, stepping forward. "Let me try to calm it down." "No way," Lucas snapped. "Stay back, Monroe. This isn't your area of expertise." But Rachel ignored him. Slowly she raised her hands to show she meant no harm. "It's okay," she whispered, taking a cautious step closer. "We're not going to hurt you." For a moment, it seemed like she might succeed. The creature stopped growling and tilted its head, almost as if studying her. Then, without warning, it lunged forward, jaws snapping. Panic erupted. Shots rang out, filling the air with deafening blasts. Bright flashes lit up the room as plasma, Bolts struck the creature, tearing into its shimmering hide. It let out a pained roar, thrashing wildly before collapsing to the ground. Smoke curled off its body as the glow in its eyes faded. Silence fell over the room. No one moved. Finally, Rachel stepped forward, her face pale. She knelt beside the fallen creature, examining it closely. Her hand brushed against something around. Its NECA collar. It was made of a strange metallic material, engraved with intricate symbols that pulsed faintly with light. This doesn't make sense, Rachel murmured, running her fingers over the collar. This isn't natural. Someone or something put this here. Lucas frowned, clearly unimpressed. Whatever it is, it's dead now. That's what matters, but Rachel wasn't listening. Her mind raced with questions. What was this creature? Where did it come from? And why did it have a collar? As the others began clearing the room, Daniel approached her. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She shook her head, still staring at the lifeless form. "I don't think we just killed an alien," she said. "I think we killed someone's pet." End of document. Document Part 2. The next morning, the colony was buzzing with whispers. News of the alien creature had spread quickly, and everyone had an opinion. Some people were relieved it was dead, convinced it would have killed them all if they hadn't acted fast. Others, like Rachel Monroe, weren't so sure. She couldn't shake the feeling that something about the whole situation was off. Rachel spent most of her time in the lab, examining the collar she'd found around the creature's neck. It was unlike anything she'd ever seen, smooth and metallic, but warm to the touch, almost alive. The symbols etched into its surface glowed faintly, shifting colors as if responding to her presence. She ran tests on it, using every tool at her disposal, but nothing gave her a clear answer. Whoever or whatever had made this collar wasn't human. As she worked, Daniel Carter stopped by to check on her. He leaned against the doorway, watching her frown at the glowing object. "Any luck?" he asked. "Not really," Rachel admitted, setting down her tools. "I've never seen materials like this before. It's advanced way beyond anything we've got. And these symbols," she pointed to the markings on the collar, "they're not random. I think they might be some kind of language." Daniel stepped closer, squinting at the symbols. "You mean like writing?" "Exactly. If I can figure out what they say, maybe we'll learn more about where this thing came from and who owns it." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Sounds important. Need a hand?" Rachel smiled faintly. "Thanks, but I'm not sure how much help you'd be." "This is pretty specialized stuff," he shrugged. "Worth a shot. Besides, someone's gotta keep you company while you stare at that thing all day." She chuckled despite herself. Having Daniel around did make things feel a little less overwhelming. He wasn't a scientist, but he had a way of staying calm under pressure. And right now, that was exactly what she needed. Meanwhile, Lucas Hayes was busy fortifying the colony. As head of security, he took the attack personally. Whether the creature had been dangerous or not didn't matter anymore. It was dead, and that meant the colony was safe. Or so he told himself. Still, he couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that there might be more of them out there. What if others came looking for their fallen companion? Lucas ordered his team to double patrols and set up additional defenses around the perimeter. He also sent a report to Earth Command, detailing the incident and requesting reinforcements. A few hours later, a reply came back. Commander Evelyn Grant, a high-ranking official known for her no-nonsense approach, would be sending a military cruiser to investigate further. Until then, Lucas was instructed to maintain order and avoid any further contact with unknown entities. When word of the incoming reinforcements reached the colonists, reactions were mixed. Some felt reassured, knowing help was on the way. Others, like Rachel, worried about what might happen when the soldiers arrived. Would they listen to reason, or would they jump straight to violence like Lucas had? Later that evening, Rachel finally made a breakthrough. After hours of analyzing the symbols on the collar, she managed to decode part of the message. Her hands trembled as she read the translation aloud to Daniel. It says, "Property of." She paused, pointing to the rest of the text. This part is harder to translate, but it looks like a name. Maybe Vinara? Daniel raised an eyebrow. So this thing belonged to someone named Vinara? That's what it looks like, Rachel said, her voice tinged with awe. And, get this, the collar isn't just decorative. There's tech inside it. Advanced tracking systems, maybe even some kind of communication device. Whoever Vinara is, they probably knew exactly where their pet was the whole time. Daniel frowned. Wait, so you're saying someone could have been watching us, even before the creature showed up? It's possible, Rachel said. Or maybe they lost track of it and were trying to find it. Either way, this changes everything. We didn't just kill some random alien monster. We killed someone's companion. Before Daniel could respond, the lights flickered, plunging the lab into darkness. For a moment, panic gripped them both. Then the emergency lights kicked in, bathing the room in a dim red glow. Outside, alarms began blaring again. What now? Daniel muttered, heading for the door. Rachel followed him, clutching the collar tightly. Whatever was happening, she knew one thing for certain. The story of the creature wasn't over yet. Back in the control room, chaos reigned once more. Screens displayed new footage of something approaching the colony, a sleek, organic-looking ship unlike anything humanity had ever built. It hovered silently above New Haven, casting a shadow over the entire outpost. Colonists gathered in the main hall, murmuring nervously as they watched the vessel through the windows. Captain Samuel Brooks, leader of the military cruiser sent by Earth Command, arrived just in time to witness the spectacle. Tall and imposing, with sharp features and an air of authority, Brooks wasted no time taking charge. He ordered his troops to prepare for battle, ignoring Rachel's pleas for caution. They're here because of the creature, she insisted. They probably want answers, not a fight. Brooks dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. We don't know that. For all we know, this is the start of an invasion. Better to strike first and ask questions later. Rachel exchanged a worried glance with Daniel. Neither of them believed Brooks's approach would end well, but arguing with him was pointless. Instead, they braced themselves for what was coming next. The alien ship descended slowly, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Suddenly, a beam of light shot out, striking the ground near the colony's outer wall. Out of the beam emerged several small drones, each shaped like a floating disc. They scanned the area methodically, their movements precise and deliberate. One of the drones entered the storage bay where the creature's body still lay. It emitted a low, mournful sound, causing the humans nearby to exchange uneasy glances. The drone lingered for a moment, then returned to the ship, carrying a fragment of the creature's remains. They know, Rachel whispered, her heart sinking. They know what we did. As the alien ship loomed overhead, tension crackled. In the air, no one spoke. Everyone waited, holding their breath, unsure of what would happen next. End of document. Document, Part 3. The alien ship remained suspended above New Haven, its presence casting a long, ominous shadow over the colony. The drones had returned to it after collecting the fragment of the creature's remains, leaving the humans in an uneasy silence. No one knew what to expect next. Would the aliens attack, communicate, or simply leave? The uncertainty was almost worse than outright hostility. Captain Samuel Brooks paced back and forth in the control room, his face tight with frustration. He didn't like being in the dark, especially when it came to potential threats. His soldiers stood at attention, weapons ready, while the colonists huddled together, whispering nervously. Rachel Monroe watched him from across the room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She wanted to say something, to argue for patience rather than aggression, but she knew it would fall on deaf ears. Brooks wasn't the kind of man who listened to reason, especially not from someone like her. Finally, he turned to address the group. "We can't afford to wait around," he said, his voice sharp and commanding. "If those aliens want to fight, we'll give them one. But we're not sitting ducks." He gestured to his team. "Set up defensive positions. I want every weapon aimed at that ship." Rachel couldn't stay silent any longer. "You don't even know why they're here," she protested, stepping forward. "They might just be looking for their companion. If you attack without knowing..." "Enough." Brooks cut her off, his tone icy. "This isn't a debate, Dr. Monroe. You're a scientist, not a soldier. Leave the strategy to me." Daniel Carter, standing nearby, exchanged a worried glance with Rachel. He could see the anger boiling beneath her calm exterior. "He's making a mistake," she muttered under her breath. "A big one." Outside, the tension grew thicker by the second. The alien ship hadn't moved since sending out the drones, but its stillness felt menacing, like a predator waiting to strike. Lucas Hayes led a group of guards to reinforce the outer walls, his jaw clenched as he scanned the horizon. He didn't trust these visitors any more than Brooks did, but even he had to admit there was something unsettling about the situation. The creature they'd killed hadn't acted like an invader, it had been scared, confused. What if Rachel was right? What if they'd made a terrible error? Back inside, Rachel decided to take matters into her own hands. She retreated to the lab, clutching the collar she'd been studying. If she could decipher more of the symbols or activate the device embedded within, maybe she could establish some form of communication. It was a long shot, but it was better than doing nothing. Daniel joined her shortly after, carrying a portable power source he'd scavenged from the maintenance bay. "Thought this might help," he said, setting it down on the table. "If that thing runs on energy, maybe we can jumpstart it." Rachel nodded gratefully. "Thanks. Let's hope it works." For the next hour, they worked tirelessly, connecting wires and adjusting frequencies. The collar pulsed faintly, reacting to their efforts, but nothing concrete happened. Just as Rachel began to lose hope, a soft hum filled the air. The symbols on the collar lit up brightly, projecting a holographic image onto the wall dot. It was a map, or at least something resembling one. Strange shapes and lines floated in midair, accompanied by more of the glowing symbols. Rachel stared at it, her mind racing. "This has to mean something," she murmured. "Maybe coordinates or instructions?" Before she could figure it out, the lights flickered again, and the hologram vanished. The collar went dark, its energy depleted. Frustrated, Rachel slumped back in her chair. "We were so close." Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll try again later. For now, let's focus on surviving whatever happens next." Meanwhile, Captain Brooks had grown impatient. Without clear orders from Earth Command, he decided to act. Ordering his troops to aim their plasma cannons at the alien ship, he issued a warning over the colony's external speakers. "This is Captain Samuel Brooks of the United Earth Defense Force. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. Failure to comply will result in hostile action." The words echoed into the void, met with silence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the alien ship responded. A beam of light shot out, striking one of the colony's turrets. The impact wasn't destructive, merely disabled the weapon, but the message was clear. The aliens weren't afraid to retaliate. Brooks cursed under his breath. "Fire at will," he shouted, giving the order to attack. Missiles streaked through the air, exploding against the alien ship's surface. To everyone's astonishment, the vessel absorbed the blasts effortlessly, its metallic skin rippling like water. Then, with terrifying precision, it fired back. Energy beams lanced out, disabling the colony's defenses and cutting off power to several key areas. Panic erupted among the colonists. People screamed and ran for cover as explosions rocked the facility. Rachel and Daniel ducked behind a workbench in the lab, shielding themselves from falling debris. "This is insane," Daniel yelled over the noise. "We need to stop him." "I know," Rachel shouted back. "But how?" As if answering her question, the alien ship suddenly stopped firing. Instead, it deployed more drones, which began scanning the area systematically. One of them entered the storage bay where the creature's body lay. It emitted another mournful sound, then transmitted a signal back to the ship. Moments later, a new message appeared on the colony's monitors. It wasn't in English, but the symbols matched those on the collar. Rachel recognized them immediately. "They're trying to communicate," she realized aloud. "They're not here to fight. They're here to find out what happened to their pet." Despite the chaos, she felt a glimmer of hope. If communication was possible, maybe there was still a chance to avoid disaster. Unwilling to give up, Rachel rushed to the control room, clutching the collar tightly. Ignoring Brooks's protests, she activated the colony's external speakers and began speaking slowly and clearly. "We are sorry," she said, choosing her words carefully. "We did not understand. Your companion was not attacking. We made a mistake." Her voice trembled, but she pressed on. "Please, we want to talk, not fight." For a moment, there was no response. Then, the alien ship emitted a low hum, and a new projection appeared in the sky, a series of images showing the creature Vinara and what looked like a family. Rachel's eyes widened as she pieced it together. The creature hadn't been a monster, it had been loved. Brooks, however, wasn't convinced. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "You're wasting time." "No," Rachel said firmly. "I'm trying to save us." As the standoff continued, the aliens finally sent a reply, a single word, written in glowing letters: "Justice." The message was clear. They wanted answers and accountability for what had been done. End of document ***. Document, Part 4. The word justice hung in the air, glowing faintly against the dark backdrop of space. It was a demand, simple yet heavy with meaning. The aliens weren't leaving, not until they got what they wanted. For Rachel Monroe, the message was both a relief and a burden. Relief because it meant the aliens were willing to communicate, but a burden because she knew humanity would have to face the consequences of its actions. Captain Samuel Brooks, however, didn't see it that way. He clenched his fists, his jaw tight as he glared at the glowing letters. "Justice," he spat. "They think they can just barge in here and make demands? This is our territory, not theirs." Rachel stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "They're not asking for permission, Captain. They're telling us what they expect. And if we don't give it to them, things could get much worse." Brooks turned to her, his eyes blazing with frustration. "You want me to roll over and let them walk all over us? Is that your plan?" "No," Rachel said, standing her ground. "My plan is to talk to them, to explain what happened. Maybe then we can avoid more bloodshed." Daniel Carter stood nearby, watching the exchange nervously. He trusted Rachel's judgment, but he also knew Brooks wasn't the kind of man to back down easily. The tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. Later that evening, Rachel managed to establish limited communication with the aliens, using a rudimentary translation device she'd built from parts scavenged around the lab. She worked tirelessly, piecing together fragments of their language based on the symbols from the collar and the images they'd projected earlier. Each breakthrough brought her closer to understanding their perspective and their pain. When she finally arranged a meeting aboard the alien ship, Brooks refused to allow anyone to go alone. "If this is a trap," he warned, "I'm not letting you walk into it without backup." Rachel sighed. "It's not a trap. They're grieving. If we show up armed to the teeth, it'll only make things worse." After a heated argument, Brooks reluctantly agreed to let Rachel and Daniel board the alien vessel with one condition. Lieutenant Harper Quinn, a young but level-headed officer, would accompany them as a gesture of goodwill. Harper was known for her ability to stay calm under pressure, and Rachel hoped her presence might help ease tensions. The journey to the alien ship was surreal. A beam of light enveloped them, lifting them off the ground and pulling them upward. Inside the ship, everything felt alive. The walls shimmered like liquid metal, shifting colors softly as they moved. Strange sounds echoed through the corridors, low hums and clicks that seemed almost musical. They were led to a large chamber where a group of aliens awaited them. The creatures were tall and slender, their skin smooth and iridescent, glowing faintly in the dim light. Their faces were angular, with wide, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to pierce right through you. One of them stepped forward, a young alien who looked different from the others. Her expression was softer, filled with sorrow. Rachel recognized her immediately. This had to be Vinara, the owner of the creature they'd killed. Through the translation device, Rachel introduced herself and explained why they were there. "We came to say, we're sorry," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "We didn't know Calverne was yours. We thought it was attacking us." Vinara listened silently, her glowing eyes fixed on Rachel. When Rachel finished speaking, Vinara responded in a series of melodic tones. The translation device struggled to keep up, but the gist was clear. Calverne had been more than just a pet, it had been family. Losing it was devastating. Harper spoke up gently. "We understand how you feel. We've lost people too. That's why we're here to try to fix this." Vinara tilted her head, studying Harper for a moment before responding. "Fixing requires truth," she said, her voice filtered through the device. "Why did you kill?" Rachel hesitated, glancing at Daniel. How could she explain the fear and misunderstanding that had led to such a tragic mistake? Taking a deep breath, she tried again. "We were scared. When Calverne appeared, we thought it was dangerous. We acted without thinking." Vinara's expression softened, but only slightly. "Fear is no excuse," she said. "Calverne was curious, not hostile. You took a life needlessly." The weight of her words hit Rachel like a punch to the gut. She had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made the guilt unbearable. "You're right," she admitted. "We were wrong. And we'll do whatever it takes to make amends." Back on New Haven, news of the meeting spread quickly. Some colonists supported Rachel's efforts to negotiate peace, while others sided with Brooks, believing humanity should stand its ground. Public opinion was divided, and tensions ran high. Commander Evelyn Grant, still aboard the military cruiser orbiting the colony, called an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. "This isn't just about New Haven anymore," she said sternly. "If we mishandle this, it could spark a war. Is that what we want?" Brooks bristled at her tone. "Are you suggesting we bow to their demands? Because that's exactly what they're expecting." "No," Grant replied. "But I am suggesting we consider all options. Killing that creature may have been a mistake, but starting a war would be catastrophic." Rachel and Daniel attended the meeting, hoping to sway the decision-makers toward diplomacy. "These aliens aren't monsters," Rachel argued. "They're grieving, just like we would be. If we take responsibility for what happened, maybe we can find a way forward." Grant listened carefully, weighing the risks. Finally, she nodded. "Very well. We'll offer reparations, medical supplies, resources, anything they ask for. But if they refuse, we prepare for the worst." When the terms were presented to the aliens, Vinara accepted them reluctantly. "This does not bring Calverne back," she said. "But it shows you are willing to change." The agreement marked the beginning of a fragile truce. The aliens promised to withdraw their forces and refrain from retaliation for now. In return, humanity vowed to take steps toward accountability and reform. As the alien ship departed, Rachel watched it disappear into the stars, her heart heavy but hopeful. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, she believed peace was possible. End of document. Document. Part 5. Back on Earth. News of the alien encounter spread like wildfire. Headlines blared across every screen, from breaking news alerts to social media posts. The story of the creature's death and humanity's tense standoff with its owners dominated conversations everywhere. People were divided. Some saw the aliens as a threat that needed to be eliminated, while others believed humanity had made a grave mistake and should make amends. President James Collins stood in the Oval Office, staring at a live feed of New Haven on one of the monitors. His advisors surrounded him, each offering conflicting advice. Some urged immediate military action, arguing that showing weakness would embolden the aliens. Others, like Secretary of Diplomacy Laura Bennett, pushed for restraint, insisting that diplomacy was the only way to avoid disaster. "This isn't just about New Haven," Bennett said firmly. "It's about how humanity wants to present itself to the galaxy. If we lash out now, we'll confirm their worst fears about us. But if we roll over," countered General Marcus Hawley, "we risk looking weak. What happens when they come? Back demanding more?" Collins sighed, rubbing his temples. He hated being caught in the middle of such polarizing debates. As leader of the free world, his decisions carried immense weight, and this one could shape humanity's future forever. "What do you suggest, then?" he asked, turning to Bennett. "We offer reparations," she replied. "Not because we're afraid, but because it's the right thing to do. We killed something precious to them, an act born of fear and misunderstanding. Admitting fault and making amends shows strength, not weakness." Hawley scowled but didn't argue further. Deep down, he knew she had a point, even if he didn't like it. Meanwhile, protests erupted worldwide. In major cities, crowds gathered to voice their opinions. Some chanted slogans like "Protect Humanity" and "No Surrender," while others held signs reading "Peace over Fear" and "We Must Do Better." The divide was stark, reflecting the uncertainty gripping society. At the heart of the controversy was Commander Evelyn Grant, whose decision to negotiate with the aliens sparked heated debates. Supporters praised her for prioritizing diplomacy, while critics accused her of betraying humanity's values. The pressure mounted daily, with calls for her resignation growing louder. Grant ignored the noise, focusing instead on implementing the truce. She ordered teams of scientists and engineers to prepare the promised reparations, a mix of advanced medical technology, rare resources, and cultural artifacts meant to symbolize goodwill. It wasn't enough to erase the damage done, but it was a start. On New Haven, life slowly returned to normal, or as close to normal as possible under the circumstances. The colonists worked to rebuild what had been damaged during the attack, though the scars ran deeper than broken walls and shattered equipment. Trust between neighbors frayed as differing opinions clashed. Those who sided with Lucas Hayes grew increasingly vocal, accusing Rachel Monroe and Daniel Carter of endangering everyone by trusting the aliens. Rachel tried to ignore the criticism, throwing herself into her work. She continued studying the collar and other remnants of Kelvierne, hoping to learn more about the aliens' culture and technology. Her discoveries fascinated her, but also weighed heavily on her conscience. Every new detail reminded her of the life humanity had taken and the responsibility they now bore. Daniel stayed by her side, lending support whenever he could. "You can't fix everything overnight," he told her one evening as they sat together in the lab. "But you're doing your part. That's all anyone can ask." "I just wish people understood," Rachel replied softly. "This isn't about winning or losing. It's about learning to coexist." Daniel nodded. "Give it time. Change doesn't happen fast." Despite the fragile peace, tensions simmered beneath the surface. A faction of extremists began gaining traction, led by a former soldier named Marcus Kane. Kane was charismatic and ruthless, with a knack for rallying disenchanted individuals to his cause. He despised the idea of bowing to alien demands and saw the truce as a betrayal of human dignity. "They think they can walk all over us," Kane declared at a rally held in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the colony. His audience cheered, pumping their fists in agreement. "But I say no, no more groveling, no more apologies. We are humans, this is our galaxy, and we will take it back." Kane's words resonated with many, especially those who felt abandoned by Earth Command's decision to prioritize diplomacy. His followers grew bolder, sabotaging joint projects meant to foster cooperation and spreading propaganda to undermine Rachel and Daniel's efforts. They saw the two scientists as traitors, blind to the dangers posed by the aliens. Rachel noticed the growing unrest but struggled to address it. She wasn't a politician or a leader. She was just someone trying to do the right thing. Still, she couldn't ignore the threat Kane represented. If left unchecked, his actions could unravel everything they'd worked so hard to achieve. One night, as Rachel walked back to her quarters, she encountered Lieutenant Harper Quinn patrolling the area. Harper had become an ally in recent weeks, sharing Rachel's belief in peaceful coexistence. "You okay?" Harper asked, noticing the worried look on Rachel's face. "Not really," Rachel admitted. "Have you heard about Kane and his group?" "They're getting worse." Harper nodded grimly. "I've seen the sabotage reports. It's only a matter of time before they cross a line." "What can we do?" Rachel asked. "If we confront them directly, it might make things worse." "For now, we keep doing what we're doing," Harper said. "Show people there's another way, but don't worry, we're keeping an eye on them. If they step out of line, we'll stop them." Rachel appreciated Harper's reassurance, but couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing. The fragile truce depended on trust, and Kane's actions were eroding it faster than anyone realized. Days turned into weeks, and the repairs to New Haven neared completion. The promised reparations were loaded onto shuttles, ready to be delivered to the aliens as a gesture of goodwill. Rachel hoped this would mark the beginning of a new chapter, a chance for humanity to prove it could rise above its mistakes. But deep down, she knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The extremists weren't going away, and neither were the doubts and fears plaguing society. Achieving lasting peace would require confronting these internal divisions head-on. Even as external threats loomed large as she gazed up at the stars one evening, Rachel whispered a silent promise to herself and to Calvern's memory. "We'll get this right," she said, "somehow." End of document. Document Part 6. The fragile peace between humanity and the aliens was about to shatter. Marcus Kane and his followers had grown bolder, their anger boiling over into outright rebellion. They saw the truce as a betrayal, a sign that Earth Command cared more about appeasing alien invaders than protecting its own people. To them, the only solution was clear. Humanity needed to take a stand, no matter the cost. Kane's plan was simple but devastating. Under the cover of darkness, his group infiltrated the storage bay where the colony kept its most advanced weapons. They loaded crates of explosives onto a stolen transport shuttle, their movements quick and silent. No one noticed until it was too late. By the time Rachel Monroe learned of the theft, the shuttle was already en route to the alien ship. Panic gripped her as she rushed to the control room, Daniel Carter close behind. "We have to warn them," she said, her voice trembling. "If Kane attacks, it'll destroy everything we've worked for." Daniel nodded grimly. "But how?" "We don't even know where they are right now." Before they could figure out a solution, alarms blared through the colony. The shuttle had reached its destination and detonated. A massive explosion lit up the night sky, sending shockwaves rippling across the asteroid. Debris rained down, narrowly missing the colony's outer walls. On the monitors, the alien ship flickered with energy, its surface damaged but intact. However, the attack had done far worse than harm their vessel. Several smaller drones patrolling nearby were destroyed in the blast, and Kane's team hadn't stopped there. They had targeted key systems aboard the ship, crippling its defenses. And communication arrays. Rachel felt sick as she watched the chaos unfold. This wasn't just an act of aggression, it was an act of war. And there was no way the aliens would see it as anything else. Aboard the alien ship, Venara stood frozen. In shock. She had been monitoring New Haven since the truce, hoping to rebuild trust after the loss of Calvierne. Now her grief turned to fury. Her people gathered around her, their glowing eyes filled with anger and sorrow. The message from their sensors was clear. The attack had come from within the human colony. "This is not justice," Venara said, her voice cold and sharp. "This is betrayal." Her advisors urged immediate retaliation. "They cannot be trusted," one of them argued. "If we do not respond, they will strike again." Venara hesitated, torn between vengeance and restraint. Deep down she wanted to believe that not all humans were responsible for this outrage, but the evidence was undeniable. Someone on New Haven had violated the truce, and the consequences would be severe. She activated a transmission link to Earth Command, bypassing the colony entirely. When President James Collins appeared on the screen, his face pale with concern, Venara delivered her ultimatum. "Your kind has attacked us without provocation," she said. "Innocent lives have been lost. You will answer for this or face annihilation." Collins stammered, trying to explain. "We didn't authorize this. It was an isolated group extremists who acted against our orders." Venera's expression hardened. "Words mean nothing unless followed by action. Prove your sincerity or prepare for war." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Collins and his advisors in stunned silence. The situation had spiraled out of control, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Back on New Haven, panic spread like wildfire. News of Kane's attack reached the colonists, sparking outrage and fear. Some condemned his actions, calling him a reckless extremist who had doomed them all. Others cheered him on, seeing the attack as a necessary step to defend humanity's honor. Rachel and Daniel knew they had to act fast. If the aliens retaliated, the colony wouldn't survive another assault. They headed to the control room, where Captain Samuel Brooks and Commander Evelyn Grant were already discussing emergency protocols. "We need to contact them," Rachel insisted. "Explain that this wasn't sanctioned by Earth Command or the colony leadership. Show them we're still committed to peace." Brooks scoffed. "You think they'll listen after what happened? They're probably gearing up to wipe us out as we speak." "Maybe," Rachel admitted. "But sitting here, doing nothing won't help. If we reach out, show them we're willing to cooperate, maybe, just maybe, we can stop this from escalating further." Grant nodded slowly. "It's worth a shot." "Brooks, organize a team to escort Rachel and Daniel to the alien ship. We'll send a message directly, bypassing any interference." Brooks frowned but didn't argue. For once, he seemed to agree. That diplomacy might be their only hope. The journey to the alien ship was tense. Armed guards accompanied Rachel, Daniel, and Harper Quinn, their weapons ready for anything. As they approached, the ship loomed large and ominous, its damaged sections glowing faintly with residual energy. When they landed, a group of aliens greeted them, their expressions unreadable. Venara stepped forward, her eyes blazing with fury. "Why have you come?" she demanded. "Do you bring more destruction?" "No," Rachel said quickly, raising her hands to show she meant no harm. "We came to explain. The attack wasn't authorized by humanity. It was the work of extremists, people who oppose the truce. Most of us want peace, not war." Venara studied her carefully, searching for truth in her words. Finally she spoke. "Prove it. Give us the ones responsible, and we will decide their fate." Rachel hesitated. Turning Kane and his followers over to the aliens felt wrong. but she knew it might be the only way to prevent full-scale war. "We'll find them," she promised, "and we'll hold them accountable." Locating Kane proved easier than expected. His triumph at sabotaging the alien ship had made him careless, and he boasted openly about his role in the attack. When Brooks and his team arrested him, Kane sneered, unrepentant. "You're making a mistake," he spat. "They'll kill us all anyway." "Maybe," Brooks replied coldly. "But at least we'll die knowing we tried to fix things." Kane and his followers were handed over to the aliens, who took them aboard their ship without comment. What happened next remained a mystery, but the threat of retaliation faded for now. As the colony began to recover, Rachel reflected on the events that had unfolded. The fragile truce had survived, but barely. Humanity's divisions, the fear, the hatred, the refusal to trust, had nearly destroyed everything. Yet amidst the chaos, there were glimmers of hope. People like Rachel, Daniel, and Harper refused to give up, determined to build bridges instead of walls. Standing outside the lab one evening, Rachel looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Vinara and her people were watching, waiting to see if humanity could truly change. Rachel whispered a quiet vow to herself. "We'll keep fighting," she said, "for peace, for understanding, for all of us." End of document. Document. Part 7. In the days following Kane's arrest and surrender to the aliens, New Haven became a colony of uneasy calm. The immediate threat of retaliation had passed, but the scars of betrayal ran deep, not just among the humans, but between humanity and the alien visitors. Vinara's people had accepted Kane's punishment as partial justice, though no one knew exactly what fate awaited him aboard their ship. Some whispered he'd been executed. Others believed he was being held for questioning. Either way, his actions had left an indelible mark on both sides. For Rachel Monroe, the aftermath was a whirlwind of emotions. Relief that war had been avoided, mingled with guilt over how close they'd come to disaster. She spent hours in the lab, studying the collar and other remnants of Calverne, searching for answers, or perhaps absolution. Each discovery reminded her of the life taken too soon and the responsibility humanity now bore. Daniel Carter stayed by her side, offering quiet support, but even he couldn't fully lift the weight from her shoulders. "I keep thinking about Vinara," Rachel admitted one evening as they worked late into the night. "How would I feel if someone killed my family pet? If someone dismissed it as just an animal?" Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "You're not wrong to feel guilty. But you didn't pull the trigger, Rachel. You've been trying to fix things since day one. That counts for something." "It doesn't bring Calverne back," she replied softly. "And it doesn't undo what we've done. We can't afford to make mistakes like this again." Meanwhile, Captain Samuel Brooks struggled with his own doubts. As head of security, he'd always prided himself on protecting the colony at any cost. But this time, brute force hadn't solved the problem. Instead, it had almost destroyed everything. For the first time in his career, Brooks questioned whether strength alone was enough, or if understanding and compromise were necessary tools in leadership. Lieutenant Harper Quinn noticed the change in him. Once rigid and unyielding, Brooks now seemed hesitant, almost reflective. During a routine patrol, Harper approached him cautiously. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked. Brooks sighed, leaning against a railing overlooking the colony's outer wall. "Do you think we did the right thing, Quinn? Handing those extremists over to the aliens?" Harper hesitated before answering. "It wasn't easy, sir. But it was necessary. If we hadn't acted, they might have attacked again, and next time we might not have survived." Brooks nodded slowly. "I know, it's just hard to trust them. Hard to believe they won't turn on us the moment we let our guard down." "Maybe," Harper said gently. "But maybe trust is something we build, not something we start with. Rachel and Daniel, they're proving that every day. Maybe we should follow their lead." Brooks didn't respond, but Harper saw a flicker of agreement in his eyes. Perhaps. There was hope for change even within him. Back on Earth, President James Collins faced mounting pressure from all sides. Public opinion remained divided, with protests erupting across major cities. Supporters of peace argued that handing over Kane proved humanity's willingness to take responsibility, while critics accused the government of bowing to alien demands. Collins knew the decision would define his presidency and possibly humanity's future. Secretary of Diplomacy Laura Bennett stood beside him during a press conference, addressing reporters and citizens alike. This was never about weakness or submission, she said firmly. It was about accountability, about showing the galaxy that humanity can rise above its mistakes. Yes, the road ahead will be difficult, but we cannot give up on diplomacy, not when so much is at stake. Her words resonated with some, but others remained unconvinced. General Marcus Hawley, still seething over the handling of the crisis, spoke out publicly against the administration. "We showed mercy when we should have shown strength," he declared at a military summit. "The aliens see our hesitation as a sign of weakness. Next time they'll strike without warning." Collins ignored the criticism, focusing instead on implementing long-term reforms. He ordered increased funding for cultural exchange programs and scientific research aimed at understanding alien civilizations. "If we want peace," he told his advisors, "we need to prepare for coexistence, not just defense." On New Haven, Rachel and Daniel continued their efforts to bridge the gap between humans and aliens. With Vinera's permission, they began collaborating on joint projects designed to foster mutual understanding. Scientists from both sides worked together to study the asteroid's unique ecosystem, sharing knowledge and techniques that benefited everyone involved. These small steps toward cooperation gave hope to many, but not everyone welcomed the changes. Some colonists resented the presence of alien researchers, viewing them as intruders rather than partners. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, occasionally boiling over into arguments or minor confrontations. Rachel and Daniel often found themselves mediating disputes, reminding both sides of the importance of patience and respect. "It's going to take time," Rachel told a frustrated Daniel, after breaking up yet another heated debate. "People are scared. They don't understand each other. But if we keep pushing forward, little by little, things will get better." Daniel smiled faintly. "You really believe that, don't you?" "I have to," Rachel replied. "Otherwise, what's the point?" Despite the challenges, progress was undeniable. The colony's defenses were upgraded with alien technology, making New Haven safer than ever before. Medical advancements developed through collaboration saved lives, earning grudging respect from even the most skeptical colonists. Slowly but surely, bonds began to form, fragile, yes, but real. Vinara visited the colony periodically, observing the humans' efforts with cautious optimism. She still carried the pain of losing Calverne, but she also saw glimpses of potential in Rachel, Daniel, and others like them. Perhaps, she thought, these humans could learn to coexist peacefully if given the chance. One evening, as Vinara prepared to leave after a productive meeting, Rachel approached her hesitantly. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for giving us another chance." Vinara studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Justice is not forgiveness," she replied, "but it is a beginning." As the alien ship departed, Rachel watched it disappear into the stars, her heart heavy but hopeful. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but for the first time, she truly believed humanity could rise to meet the challenge. End of document. Part 8 months passed, and New Haven became a symbol of uneasy coexistence. The colony was no longer just a mining outpost. It had transformed into a testing ground for humanity's ability to adapt, learn, and grow. For Rachel Monroe and Daniel Carter, every day brought new challenges and small victories. They worked tirelessly alongside the aliens, building trust one step at a time. But they both knew that peace was fragile, held together by threads that could snap under the slightest strain. Vinara visited less frequently now, but her presence loomed large over the colony. Her people continued to monitor New Haven closely, ensuring that humanity honored its promises. Though their relationship with the colonists had improved, suspicion lingered on both sides. Some humans still whispered about the aliens' true intentions, while some aliens doubted whether humanity could truly change. It was a delicate balance, one that required constant effort to maintain. One evening, Rachel stood outside the lab, gazing up at the stars. She thought about Calverne, the creature whose death had sparked so much conflict, and wondered if she'd ever feel at peace with what had happened. "Do you think we're doing enough?" she asked Daniel, who leaned against the railing. Beside her, Daniel shrugged. "Enough isn't really the question. We're doing something. That's better than nothing." Rachel smiled faintly. "You always know how to make me feel better." "I try," he said with a grin. "But seriously, look how far we've come. A few months ago, we were this close to blowing each other up. Now, we're working together. That's progress." She nodded, though doubt still lingered in her mind. Progress was important, but it wasn't perfect. Extremist groups like Marcus Kane's faction still existed, lurking in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to strike again. And even among those who supported peace, old prejudices died hard. Back on Earth, President James Collins faced increasing pressure to address the lingering divisions within society. While many embraced the idea of coexistence, others saw the truce as a betrayal of human values. Protests continued, with extremists calling for humanity to reclaim its dominance in the galaxy. To counteract these voices, Collins launched a global initiative aimed at fostering understanding between humans and aliens. The initiative included educational programs, cultural exchanges, and public forums where scientists, diplomats, and ordinary citizens could share their experiences. Secretary of Diplomacy Laura Bennett played a key role in organizing these efforts, traveling across the globe to speak directly with communities affected by the crisis. "We can't erase fear overnight," she told a crowd gathered in New York City, "but we can choose to face it to learn from it. That's how we move forward." Her words resonated with many, inspiring hope even in the darkest corners of society. Still, resistance remained strong. General Marcus Halley led a vocal opposition, warning that humanity's willingness to compromise would only embolden alien aggression. His speeches drew large crowds, fueling fears that diplomacy would leave Earth vulnerable. Collins refused to back down. "We cannot build a future based on fear," he declared during a televised address. "If we want to survive in this galaxy, we must learn to live alongside others, not dominate them." On New Haven, Captain Samuel Brooks found himself grappling with his own doubts. Once a staunch advocate for military solutions, he now struggled to reconcile his instincts with the realities of coexistence. Watching Rachel and Daniel work side by side with the aliens forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about humanity's flaws and his own. During a routine patrol, Brooks encountered Lieutenant Harper Quinn, who had become a trusted ally. "In recent months, you seem different lately," she observed, studying him carefully. Brooks hesitated before responding. "Different how?" "More thoughtful," Harper said with a small smile. "Less quick to pull the trigger." He chuckled dryly. "Maybe I'm finally learning that brute force doesn't solve everything." "It's not a bad lesson," Harper replied, "especially now when trust matters more than weapons." Brooks nodded slowly, realizing she was right. Trust, fragile, imperfect, and essential, was the foundation of everything they were trying to build. He resolved to do his part, however difficult it might be. Despite the progress, tensions simmered beneath the surface. One night, a group of extremists infiltrated the colony, planting explosives near the power grid. Their goal was simple: sabotage the joint projects and reignite hostilities. Fortunately, Harper and her team discovered the plot in time, preventing disaster. The perpetrators were arrested, but the incident served as a stark reminder of the dangers still lurking. In the shadows, Rachel and Daniel worked to reassure both humans and aliens that such acts did not represent the majority. "There will always be people who resist change," Rachel told Vanara during a meeting, "but most of us want peace. We're willing to fight for it." Vanara studied her silently, then nodded. "Your kind is complicated," she admitted. "But perhaps that is why you are worth saving." As weeks turned into months, New Haven became a beacon of hope, a place where two vastly different species learned to coexist despite their differences. Rachel and Daniel continued to lead by example, proving that understanding and cooperation were possible. Their efforts inspired others to follow suit, creating ripples of change that spread far beyond the asteroid colony. One evening, as Rachel stood outside once more, Daniel joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. "You think we'll ever get it right?" he asked. "Get what right?" "All of it. Peace, coexistence, everything." Rachel sipped her coffee, thinking carefully before answering. "I don't think there's a right. There's just trying. As long as we keep trying, I think we'll be okay," Daniel smiled. "That's good enough for me." Together, they watched the stars twinkle in the vast expanse of space, knowing the road ahead would be long and uncertain, but worth it. End of document.